Well, as you can see, we're two today. We are together again. She's smiling. Oh, welcome back to Nigeria.
Welcome
back. Welcome to 2022. It's the first time I'm seeing you this year at all.
Correct.
Yeah.
A happy New Year to you, and a happy New Year to you all at home.
Wait a minute. Since last year. I haven't seen you since last year.
Since last year, exactly.
Concert, yeah, was okay. Do people even still take Uncle Ben's? That's the only thing the old man could remember.
Uncle Ben's
Rice.
Does Uncle Ben still exist in Nigeria?
I'm not going to do the advert, but the answer is yes.
Oh, it is?
Mm-hmm.
God, I've not seen that thing not since I left University of Ibadan.
How many
that
decades
was
ago?
Standard fare in UI. I mean, 3 packets would take you a whole session.
What kinds of rice do you even remember in those days? Well, thanks to radio, I heard about Uncle Ben's rice. I heard about Caroline rice. I heard about Uncle Flo.
Uncle Flo?
Yeah, there was
an uncle called Flo.
No, there was a. I even remember the advert.
We
Uncle
should check
Flo's
out
rice
Uncle
is selected
Flo's.
and specially imported by Yinka Fulawe and Sons Limited, Unity House, 13th floor, 37 Marina, Lagos.
Uncle Flo?
Yes.
Well, the man whose name is Flo, we should actually go and examine him. Oh?
If he ever even existed in the
The
first
man
place.
does not know whether he's a he or he's a she. Or he's a she. Uncle Flo. Normally, Flo is Florence. Anyway.
Oh, that's where you're going. With that, I
Uncle
see.
Flo.
Okay, now I know. So, what are some of those things you picked before you went or since you came back?
Well, since I came back, the president's speech.
Okay.
And the one that struck me was when he spoke about state police. And he said...
No, that's the interview.
Yes, the interview. Not speech, rather the president's interview. And I thought, can he really make a categorical statement like he has really done? Is it not left to the National Assembly? But then, what do I know? Maybe the president can just make a pronouncement. No state police, full stop. Everybody, go to bed.
Well, if the law is made, or if the constitution is changed to the effect, he could reserve the right to sign the bill into law or not. I think that's the only thing there, because at the end of the day, it's the National Assembly that will make the law or adjust the constitution to the effect, and I think that's in the works. National Assembly is already thinking about constitution review. I think 1 billion naira has been budgeted for that in the 2022 budget to work on the review of the constitution. And that's one of the things that the governors are talking about. The president's concern about that, though, I gave a thought to it, Alera, and I'm like, maybe there is a little bit of sense in what he said. Here's my take. It is true, many people have lived in different parts of Nigeria for donkey years, even pre-independence. Yorubas have lived in Sabongere in Kano for a long time. Anambra people have lived in...
everywhere.
Everywhere, okay, you know, for quite a long time. And the Kanuri man has lived in the Niger Delta for so many years.
Yes,
so
there's Hausa quarters in Sapele, for instance.
Okay, so we had a way of relating with each other over the years in those interior communities. What happened to us? The local government systems were very, very efficient in those days. There's an inscription in the center of my town, says, "Remember the son of whom you are." So everyone knew everybody.
Yeah.
You just show up in maybe 5 kilometers from home and you behave in a particular way, or you get lost. They just ask you,
whose child
are you? Someone is going to tell you, oh, that's the house of so person.
Yeah.
That thing doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't. We become more insular. Everybody is thinking more about themselves and their immediate family.
So, and that in itself was the first line of security.
Yeah.
Back in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that has been eroded, perhaps that's one of the issues that the president was raising, that look, go and look at the way, because we have lived communally before together. What happened? So if we lost that communality, we've lost our first line of security. Maybe that's what he's thinking.
Another thing that struck me was that at every opportunity he got, he said, we have to go back to the land. We have to go back to the land. He kept repeating that, we have to go back to the land. But what then crossed my mind was, so what is government doing to ensure that people go back to the land, to encourage people to go back to the land? Is it in these days where farmers can't go to their farms because of those people who have now been declared terrorists, by the way? People need to be encouraged.
People even need to know the will of government in that regard. I haven't looked at the budgets of many states, any state, as a matter of fact. And I know that there is a budget for the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, but to what extent is it critical to governments to return people to the land? I would want to ask questions. Because in the budget speech,
we have to feed ourselves.
Is
that a good enough reason?
I'm coming somewhere. In the budget speech, you know, back in time when you were looking for a word, there was no technology. When you were looking for a word, you have to look at line by line for each word. But today, just Google a speech, find on page, and I did the same thing, and I found on page agriculture. I only found one place in the budget speech that Mr. President delivered where the word agriculture was mentioned. Now, when I also looked at the budget analysis delivered by the Minister of Finance, National Planning, Budget and National Planning, I found only two places where budget was mentioned. When we did a critical sector breakdown, agriculture didn't appear. So when we asked Garba Shehu the question, I said, well, maybe it's something more for states and the private sector. Agreed. That is the private sector that is going to drive it. But the question is, what's the enablement that the government is going to give to the private sector? Put in place,
yes.
I know that there is a national livestock transformation plan, and it's supposed to be all-inclusive between the federal government and the state governments. How far with that one would want to see? There is a national development plan for 2021 to 2025. Maybe, I've not looked at it, maybe it has some critical, provisions for agriculture. I don't know, and I hope there is. Because agriculture has worked for Nigeria before. It still holds tremendous potential to work for us in all ways possible.
Even if we're not exporting like we used to in those days, we still need to do some agriculture to be able to feed ourselves.
I agree with you.
Because a nation that cannot feed itself is courting trouble.
A nation that cannot feed itself is vulnerable. Do you know? Let me make you a little uncomfortable, Alero. Permit me to make you a little uncomfortable.
No. It's my first day on air. Please.
I intend to
spare me.
I know I won't. I want to make you a little uncomfortable.
Oh dear. There goes my partner. All right.
We import. I think we consume about 16,000 or thereabout tons of honey in Nigeria every year. We make less than 10%. You're uncomfortable.
I'm now a deaf mute.
And the value chain.
I am a deaf mute.
The value chain of honey alone in Nigeria is $10 billion, according to the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. Okay, let me stop there. So just imagine that we only took...
I just tire for you. I just tire for you. So, President,
you.
we should go back to the land. Fine. Everybody wants to go to the city, and everybody wants to wear a white shirt and go to an office. So, how are you going to make people go back to the farm, since it seems to be your ardent wish?
One of the questions that I've asked around that, we have had a conversation here before, I think you were around, when we spoke with the professor in Ibadan, who talked about the fact that
students studying agriculture
don't want to study agriculture, don't want to stay.
And they don't even want to go to the farm when they finish.
So there you go. So how much are we encouraging? And because when we're talking about agriculture, we shouldn't be talking about agriculture just for today, just for feeding Nigeria of 2022 or even 2023. Feed, okay, 10 years from now is 2033.
Operation Feed the Nation.
That was in 78, I think.
Then came along Green Revolution.
And then we went mute until Babangida came back with free and better life for rural dwellers.
Where are they all?
Okay.
Anyway, the menu.
Yes, talking about menu.
We're going to start by looking at the sugar tax. Taxes on soft drinks. Why do it?
Good question.
I'm surprised that government is suddenly interested in our sugar intake.
Is it that government is interested in our sugar intake, or it's a revenue? I don't know. Anyway.
Anyway, we'll have experts who will tell us.
Most certainly.
Okay, all right.
Boosting internet access is the next topic as well. We'll be talking about how we boost internet access in the country.
And then we shall be stemming drug abuse.
No, we will not be stemming drug abuse today. We will not be stemming drug abuse today. I don't want it to continue, but we will not be stemming it. And then there's the Future Africa Leaders Foundation. Why are you laughing?
Okay, and then we'll close with the Artist of the Week segment, as is usual on Sunrise.
Not that we shouldn't stem in drug abuse, just don't get me wrong.
Okay, all right.
But we'll talk about it another day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Then we'll close out with the Artist of the Week, you said?
Yes.
We'll close out with Artist of the Week. Who's the Artist of the Week?
All I know is that he's a he.
Oh, you know he's a he?
Mbene.
Okay.
He's not a she, mo.
In Nigeria, there are two genders. It's either a he or she, not a shim.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's get the show started. During the week, the federal government introduced an excise tax of 10 naira per litre on all non-alcoholic, carbonated, and sweetened beverages. You know what that covers. The federal government said the reason for the task is to discourage excessive consumption of sugar in beverages, which contributes to a number of health conditions, including diabetes and obesity. Well,
I see.
Nigerians are still talking about this. Today, let us see if we can get to the rationale for this excise tax. It's my pleasure to welcome the former Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and the current CEO of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Mr. Muda Lawal. Why do I keep calling you Mr.
No, you
Muda
haven't
Lawal?
forgotten. You haven't forgotten the football
Muda
player.
Yusuf.
It's just as simple as that.
I don't know why. I'm sorry.
No, don't worry. It's because you never
Mr.
really
Yusuf.
forgot the Green Eagles, not Super Eagles, no, Green Eagles of the 80s. Same teammate with Segun Odegbami.
And Segun Odegbami is my tennis partner every Sunday morning.
But today, well, we knew him as a footballer.
Big Sheg.
Yeah.
He plays good tennis as
Yeah,
well.
we still have another guest. I don't know if that one is also your tennis. Just saying.
Go ahead, introduce him.
Okay, well, Tayo Ogungbero joins us as well. He is is a partner, Tax Regulatory and People Services, KPMG Nigeria. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Good.
Okay.
A bird in hand. Let me start with Mr. Yusuf. Why would one, when you heard of this tax, what in your mind was government driving at by imposing this tax and their sudden interest in the health of Nigerians?
Are you happy that government is even interested in our health?
Well, ordinarily, we should all be happy that government is showing interest in our health. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you wonder whether there is a proper appreciation of what the realities are on the ground. Because this issue, of course, has a medical dimension. There is the economic dimension or investment angle. There's also the welfare aspect of it. If there is any major challenge that we had as an economy and as a people in 2021, it was about high prices, high inflation. In some instances, some prices even doubled. Yeah. Even though we have the headline inflation as quoted, as reported by the NBS at 15.4% in November. That was the latest we have. In some cases, particularly when you look at the basket of goods that the ordinary people consume, you are talking about between 30% even to 100%. I watched your program, the Community Report, was it yesterday? And I saw the lamentation of the average Nigerians. So what I'm saying is that we need to worry about the welfare of the people. Health is important. Nobody's diminishing that. But the pressure on the average Nigerian is already heavy enough.
Purchasing power.
Yes. If you cannot help to lift the burden, you should not add to it at this time. Because you are talking about, adding a lot more tax or imposing tax so that it can discourage people from consuming a particular product. The reality is that the prices are already up. I mean, if you look at all these soft drinks and things like that, the prices have gone up by close to 50% in the last 1 year. So from the point of view of the welfare, I don't think the timing is good. I don't think it shows sufficient demonstration of the sensitivity of the plight of the people. Because we are talking about not just these soft drinks, we are talking about beverages. So even all these things that parents buy and put in the baths of their children, chocolate drinks and all these things will be subject to tax, additional tax.
But they're not carbonated.
No, they are not.
It says carbonated.
Carbonated is there,
yes.
Even if there is no sugar. Once it's carbonated, it's part of it. Non-alcoholic and sweetened beverages. And don't forget, this is going to be managed by the Nigeria Customs. I know what it is when Customs is managing this kind of thing. And it is targeted, more importantly, because there's also the investment part of it. This is targeted at domestic production.
Dr. Yusuf, we'll come to some of those details. But Mr. Ogungbero, do you share the same view that it's coming at a wrong time, or that it's even coming at all?
I perfectly agree with him. And it appears that government does not appreciate what is really going on in the economy. Apart from the fact that the cost of basic food items is currently beyond the reach of an average Nigerian. Nigerians, especially in the cities, have turned to soft drink, beverage, carbonated one in particular, as a means of livelihood, whereby with 300 naira or 250 naira, you buy a bottle of soft drink with 100 naira sausage. You are done for most part of the day. Now, with the introduction of this levy, definitely the price will be affected one way or the other. There are three options. The producer can absorb it, and I doubt, because soft drink industry is a thin margin industry. Their margin is very thin. So the likelihood is that if their prices, if they cannot absorb it, they push the price to the consumer. And we know that in Nigeria, we buy things in the multiples of 50 naira. Currently, it is now 150 naira. If they put 5 naira on a 50 centiliter of carbonated drink, the price is not going to stay at 155 naira. It's definitely going to move to 200 naira. So it is a recipe for another inflation. And unfortunately, it is focused at the lower strong of the country.
Yes.
It's really not at the right time. But let me also say that I feel for the government. I really feel for them. Let's face reality. Government does not have money. In the current budget, the expected revenue realistically to be generated is barely 50% of the capital of the total expenditure. And government has said that they are not going to do anything to the expenditure. To use their word, they said controlling expenditure is not viable, which means the only alternative you have, like the Minister of Finance has been saying frequently, that our problem is how to generate revenue. So what it means in essence is that government is looking at all places to get this revenue from. I think they've tried in subjecting the rich to tax through the taxation of luxury items. Now it is now time to turn to the poor. Well, so I share with the sentiment, and it's really unfortunate.
But then one of the issues that a number of people have raised about this whole tax thing, Mr. Ogungbero, is that there is still a significant number of people that are not within the bracket, especially in the private sector, maybe the unorganized private sector, the micro, small, and medium enterprises. And available data shows that we have something in the region of 40 million of them. So I'm wondering, do you think it would be necessary to tax the lower echelon, so to speak, if we were able to capture the micro, small, and medium enterprises within that bracket?
I hear you, which is what you're trying to say. If I can understand it very well, it's because of our low tax to GDP ratio. And it's basically due to the quantum of citizens that are not currently paying tax. So you are using an indirect form of taxation to bring them within the tax net, which is what is an acceptable practice in most developed economies. Is understandable. However, in doing it, you need to also take appropriate cognizance to say these policies that have been introduced, to what extent will yield the expected result? Now, like I said, you are going to impose 110 naira on a 1 liter of carbonated drinks. What is the amount that government is going to get compared to getting these people to pay the taxes directly? Now, let's put it this way. Let us assume that government is expecting that they will get, I don't know, maybe 50 billion naira from this. But we should know that this tax is a levy. What I mean is a levy is that it becomes a tax deductible item for the companies. What it means is that once they pay the tax at the very top, they reduce their income tax payable. So what government should have waited to collect from the companies in form of companies income tax, they are collecting a part of it indirectly. So when you increase the levy or impose the levy and you start to collect the indirect tax, then you reduce the taxes payable by them. So it may turn out to be zero-sum game. Government may be the net loser out of this. Yes, you are trying to bring the people within the tax net, but the way you need to do is to find a way that anybody paying the tax, especially the people that are not within the tax net, they pay it directly now, which is find a way to bring them within the tax net through the personal income tax, not through this form of taxation that will all lead to reduction of tax payable by these companies. So it may be a zero-sum game. It may not achieve the intended result.
Okay. Well, Dr. Yusuf, the part where Mr. Ogungbero said government does not have money, so government is naturally looking for every opportunity, every available opportunity to raise revenue. You know that that's been the something that government has been talking about for a while. Do you see any other option for government to go around this issue of raising revenue as opposed, other than, taxing?
Well, there are already a lot of options. If you look at the Finance Act, quite a number of new taxes were even there. This is generating so much concern because it is touching directly on the ordinary people. And I think as a government, the government needs to be very sensitive to that. Now, if you look at the Finance Act, for instance, the education tax, it used to be 2%, it has been increased to 2.5%. There is also some other taxes, like tax on digital transactions, all these Amazon and the rest of them. These are also new things that have been brought into it. You see, the point is that even from a revenue perspective, this is not likely to yield much because it's going to affect demand. And once demand drops, the company income tax that these companies are paying will drop. The VAT will drop. Meanwhile,
so is it therefore counterproductive?
Yes, you have created, and in addition to that, you have created a major social problem because the social cost of this is high. And even I dare say, even the political cost. Election is next year. And things like this have a way of also impacting the disposition of even the electorates. And when you talk about taxes, because I've heard this thing being said by many people that we are not adequately taxed, that tax to GDP ratio is one of the lowest in the world. I've heard that argument. But just permit me just to run through some of these taxes that we are already paying. We have the company income tax. We have the value-added tax. You have the capital gains tax. That's if you sell an asset, whatever you make, you pay a tax on it. You have the tertiary education tax, which is the education tax, which has been reviewed now from 2% of your profit to 2.5%. You have technology tax, which is imposed on banks, telcos, maritime, and all of that. You have stamp duties for all these transactions, electronic transactions, and all of that. You have import duty that you pay if you import anything. You have export duty. Then you have this excise tax. Then you have this science and tech levy. Now, only recently, you have the police fund levy. You have the tertiary, that is now in the National Assembly, it's another tax. Tertiary health care levy. That's also going to be levied on companies. You have the science and engineering levy. This is just at the federal.
There's no end to it, is there?
Then at the states, you have the property tax. In Lagos, you pay the land use tax.
Yes.
You have sales tax or consumption tax, in addition to VAT. You have entertainment tax, all these event centers. There are taxes you pay for every event that holds on your premises. You have entertainment tax in some locations. You have environmental tax. Some of these local governments, they go around telling you that because of the environment, you have to pay a tax. You have mining tax, you have signage and advert tax. You have mobile advert tax. You have produce tax. All these guys that barricade the road when you are carrying something from one state to the other, they also demand some taxes from you. You have the abattoir tax. You have infrastructure maintenance tax. If you talk to people in Lekki Aziz and all of that, there's a levy you pay for infrastructure maintenance. So we have a lot, and even at the local government, you have about 20 different taxes, including radio tax. There was a time when I was still at the LCCI, a member of the chamber, I was asked to come and pay about 350,000 naira TV tax. How much is the television?
I wonder.
So the point I'm making is that
for how long did you have this
there's a
TV?
point that we need to rationalize this.
Okay.
That should even be the conversation.
No, Dr. Yusuf.
Not even bringing additional burden of tax on people. These are the conversations we should be having.
You used to be DG at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Let's look at the manufacturer's angle now.
Yes.
We have looked at the consumer's angle.
Yes.
How will this affect the manufacturer?
Well, naturally, it will have a very serious adverse effect on them. Because if there is any segment of the economy that is really struggling to survive, it is manufacturing. Apart from the high-end segments of players in that sector, you know, the multinationals, they have their own issues as well. Those are the medium to small enterprise level are struggling because the environment is extremely difficult for them. And when you are in that business, it's not a liquid investment that you can just exit and say you are moving to something else. Like you are in financial markets where you have that flexibility. Once you have your machineries for a particular product, you are stuck there. And here is the government talking about lifting 100 million people out of poverty.
How?
We are talking about generating more employment. And yet, this segment of the economy that is already burdened, they are burdened by high energy costs. They are paying for gas in dollars. The cost of diesel.
Dr.
Hold on.
I'm coming there. I want you to speak a little more on that, just
Yes.
for a little moment, because on the one hand, government is talking about enabling business, the business environment. On the other hand, we are having these issues. Now, one of the questions that has played on my mind, and I will probably raise this with Mr. Ogungbero as well shortly, but one of the questions that has played on my mind is, there are economists in the Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning who definitely will understand some of these things and the implication of some of these decisions. I also believe that in passing the Finance Act, which empowers government to take these decisions, the National Assembly committees that deliberated on it must have spoken with some economists here or there. I mean, I'm making that assumption because I don't think that members of the National Assembly will take such decisions without doing some consultations. What would you say would be the premise upon which these decisions were taken without considering some of these issues that you are raising?
Well, I don't think there is that level of consultation.
Really?
The depth of consultation on things like, I mean, look at the speed at which even the Finance Act was passed.
So
Look
you
at
think
this
that
speech.
the Manufacturers Association, for instance, was not consulted before?
Certainly not. Even there was a recent visit by before the passage of this budget and this Finance Act. The Manufacturers Association visited the president. And part of the issues they raised was this excise tax. Before then, I think there was some rushed public hearing, which I'm not sure many people were even aware. Because for you to pass this kind of thing, the whole idea of the democracy is that you should also organize a public hearing where you listen to those who will be affected. How many people are aware that there was a public hearing? And those who are even our representatives in the National Assembly, how many of them consulted their constituents?
Okay.
To say that, okay, this tax is coming. What do you think? Because that is the whole idea of representation in a democracy.
Okay. Let me ask Mr. Ogungbero, in taking some of these decisions, I mean, as you have said, government is between the devil and the deep blue sea. No resources, yet you have to take some decisions, especially that has to do with money and everything. What are the other options that you have seen? Well, Dr. Yusuf has talked about the fact that there are options. I think about 12 or 13 tax laws were adjusted to make up the finance bill, and with a significant number of provisions. So what for you are the options? Of course, you also know that government has said the only way we can balance out in the year 2022 is to borrow more to finance the budget. What for you are the other options other than this difficult tax that's been imposed?
Okay, thanks for that question. And let's get it right. There are no two ways to financing an expenditure. A family head knows that he has responsibility to pay his bills, and at the minimum, he will feed his children, the family, and provide social amenities based on his budget. So there are no two ways other than to get the money. Even at the moment, we are borrowing a lot from the international community. We will definitely have to pay at a point in time. Even if part of it will be written off in future, we still have to pay. Now, the only way out is just to find a way to bring the majority of Nigerians that are outside the tax net within the tax net. There are no two ways. And I like the way that he has listed numerous taxes that we have currently. When we check with most countries that have a high tax to GDP ratio, they have very few number of taxes. And what they also do is that they make it very simple for people to understand and comply with. And let me just give an example so that the viewers can relate with it, and permit me to use the example in the church. Your tithe is just 10%. My mother that didn't go to school understands that 10% of her income is tithe. All you now need to do is to convince her to pay. But she knows how to determine it now. If you have multiple taxation that makes it more complex, then people have a reason to try to evade. Of course, the government has introduced this one now. Definitely, quite a number of people will be looking for the way out. So our major challenge in Nigeria is how do we bring the underground economy within the tax regime? And one of the ways that I think it should be done, I will use it, is just to see, we need transparency. There are no two ways about it. If you collect tax, people want to know what the tax is being used for. And please permit me to use the example. I've been in KPMG for quite a while. I remember when, please permit me, Governor Raji Fashola was in power. He was making the governance so transparent that you can see the impact of revenue generation on infrastructural production, and now he was spending the money. And I can remember quite a number of people walked to our office in KPMG. And I was also in charge, whereby they met people like me to say that, look, I remember one guy that came to say that this man is doing something very good. I've never been paying tax. They can never catch me. I know how to do my business. But because he was delivering, he was providing value for revenue generation, he told me, I want to pay. And we assisted him in tax remittance. Today is within the tax net in Lagos State. And if you also notice what Lagos tried to do, using as an example, they will try to direct people's attention to any infrastructure facility or anything that is taking place, saying that taxpayers' money in action. So the way out, the surest way out is let people see that the taxes that are being paid, or in one form or the other, they can see how it is being utilized. And we will now make a reason for us to be able to bring more people within the tax net. There are no two ways about it. We need revenue generation to address the current situation, one way or the other. Whether we borrow, we're still going to pay in future. And somebody's here to pay that money, and it's going to form through taxation.
Okay. This talk about enlarging the tax net, you professionals have been talking about it forever, but we don't seem to see any concerted effort by government to expand that tax net. Instead, they keep either increasing taxes or threatening subsidy every other day. Today they say they have removed subsidy, they increased the price of petrol. Tomorrow they say they have not removed it. And this thing just goes on, or they increase the number of taxes that people have to pay. So, what is your advice to government regarding how they're going to achieve this expansion of the tax net?
We have our laws there, and that's a very good question. We have our laws there. But the issue is that we actually obey the law in default. Government needs to show political will in enforcement. Our law makes provision for the fact that if anybody evades us, it should be sent to prison if convicted. But as of today, I'm not aware that a single soul is behind bars for tax evasion. We remember the case of one guy in Europe that was alleged to have evaded tax. While he was arrested and the investigation was ongoing, he knew that this would be a very high price. He committed suicide, or alleged to have committed suicide, and he died in the prison. The price for non-compliance in advanced country is worse than committing a crime like killing somebody. So government needs to have that political will to go after income earners. And these are the big people that actually sponsor them for, I mean, we know them in the society and we know what to do. So it is just the political will to go after the people for them to come and pay the tax. Once you have the political will, the solution is there. And also, government just needs to deploy technology. We already have the technology in place that tracks people's income. Government knows how to move this money. Government knows everything. But putting the political will in place and going after the people that will pay the tax is actually the major thing. And for us, for government to really do it, you need to start from the top. I'm not going to start from where you are going to spend 80% of your revenue to collect 20%. You are going to spend your resource of 20% to go after the people that will pay the tax of 80%. To what extent is government committed to doing this in the right way, transparently? I think that is the only way. Now, if you are able to do it and get the people that are at the very top, get a few people who have not been paying tax, you identify them, you did the necessary thing, you prosecute them, then you send the message loud and clear to the common man on the street to do the necessary thing.
Well, Dr. Yusuf, he talked about transparency, especially of transparency, especially in the utilization of the tax to encourage or provoke those who have not been paying tax to pay. He also talked about transparency in the collection and remittances of the taxes. What's your take on those issues?
Yes, before I respond to that, let me also underscore one or two things that he said. In many other climes, particularly in more advanced societies, only about 15 to 20% of the people pay 80% of the tax. In other words, you make the taxes, particularly income tax, you make it as progressive as possible. So that those who really have the capacity to pay, you make sure they pay. This country is blessed by quite a number of billionaires. Go to our airports, go to Abuja, see the lineup of private jets.
But the question that one of the things
What
that
are
he
they?
raised,
Who are those riding
one
those
of the
jets?
things that he raised about that is if people do not see that the taxes, the tax being collected are being utilized for public good, they are not encouraged.
Is that why you should be riding a private jet and you are not paying something that is commensurate? That is where they should start from. Not going to the market or going to people who are selling tomatoes and all of that, and be harassing them for tax.
You think that is not being done already? You think
No,
the people
no. It's not showing. How many of them are in the tax net? And many of them, it's not as if they have factories or something. Some of them are just briefcase guys who stays in some suits in hotels, and they are really wealthy. Don't you see the properties in Abuja? Don't you see the properties in Lekki Aziz and all of? Who owns them?
Well, we have
are they journalists like
we have property tax?
Or are they manufacturers?
Dr. Yusuf, we have property tax. How can you say that they are not being taxed?
How much are you getting from property tax? How much?
Well, maybe
you have the budget. How much is coming from property tax? How much is coming from people who are flying business class and first class?
Well,
These are the people who should be paying the tax.
Does this also speak, Dr. Yusuf, to the transparency issue Mr. Ogungbero raised?
Well, you see, transparency is one thing. Commitment to the ideas of proper taxation, progressive taxation, is another.
But we don't know that these people you are talking about do not pay tax because we don't have that information. That's why I'm asking,
if they are paying, you will see the data. I mean, I've had some reports of how many people who are paying up to a million naira in tax in Lagos State and other states and all of that. The numbers are so few compared to the billionaires that we have around.
Mr. Yusuf.
So the structure and the strategy to get, because they call it Pareto principle. You go after the few that can give you the largest results.
Yes.
That is the way to go.
The issue that Mr. Ogungbero raised is very germane. Because, I mean, what he said is something that we spoke about on this program at the time when Fashola was governor of Lagos State, when even Okada riders were asking for where tax offices were, that they wanted to go and pay their taxes. So, is it not therefore important that government itself should act in a way that will make people want to pay taxes?
Very important. I agree perfectly with it. Because it is a moral issue. If you're asking people to pay tax, you don't collect people's tax and you are buying SUVs and you have a long convoy of vehicles and all of that, and people see you spending lavishly. I mean, you see the structure of our budget. You see some of those budget headlines, catering, food, and all welfare, honorarium. See the number of figures that are there. These are the taxes that we are paying. So I agree perfectly that it's a moral thing. For you to demand money or tax from people, you must show evidence. Many of these people that are paying the tax, they still provide the services that government is supposed to provide for them. They provide it on their own. Some of them tar the road to their factories. And as citizens, you pay heavily by sending your children to private schools. Ordinarily, some of these taxes should be used to fund education, so that you get quality education from the public school. But what is the situation now with primary and secondary school? If you don't go to private school, you can't get quality education.
Sure.
The same thing with health service.
We'll come to those other issues. But Mr. Ongbero, Dr. Yusuf has raised issues around the private sector. How significantly do you think this and a number of those other taxes he has talked about that the private sector is subjected to, how significantly do you think it affects their operations, their ease of doing business, and eventually their capacity to pay significant tax to government?
Let us take note that tax is another cost to an entrepreneur, and tax impacts the bottom line. And we should also know that government is a very serious stakeholder in businesses, in providing the environment. However, you need the private sector to do it now. If the tax is so high, or you do not create a level playing field whereby the tax is considerate. If the tax is too high, then if the return that will come to the investor is not commensurate, then they will not take the initiative. It will just be at the level of, possibly, let's even use the case of the soft drink industry now. There's a likelihood that any other potential entrant into the soft drink industry will watch how this levy is going to impact the entire market. So when tax is very high, you are creating an environment whereby you may be indirectly discouraging investment. And when you are discouraging investment, there is not going to be business opportunity, there's not going to be employment opportunity, and taxes will come back very low. So tax is very significant, and it has to be seriously determined, especially in consultation with the people that are really the entrepreneur.
Do you think that was done? Do you think that there was a drill down to all the various sectors that will be affected? I'd like you to, explain some of those things. Dr. Yusuf has tried to do that, dichotomizing carbonated drinks from sweetened beverages and non-alcoholics and all of that. But do you think there were conversations around with those people who are involved in the production of these things to the effect that how it will affect them?
Okay, since the levy was introduced, let me put it this way, because some of them are quite KPMG's clients. We were aware of this intention more than a year ago or thereabout. Government has indicated intention that they would do this, and there were discussions. But it's just like at times when you are discussing with somebody, and the person is actually telling you this is what I intend to do. The body language of the person is not that he's engaging with you, but rather is really telling you what he intends to do. So I would say there were discussions, there were short consultations, but whether government took it into consideration or not is another thing entirely.
Do you think that was done? Do you think there was any consideration from government side about how the industry would react?
I think they will have done some their own. Definitely, government will have done something. But when governments are determined to do something, or when maybe let us say the need to generate revenue has overweighed the issue of whether they should do it or not. They will have realized that it's going to create some impact. They will have also done their own analysis. But like I said, they are really there's a desperation to raise to generate revenue. So I think they will have weighed the two options, and the final decision will have been to say, well, we may need to buy the bullet. Let's go ahead and implement it. Let's see how the economy will take it. If it becomes very tough, maybe 2-3 years down the line, they may reverse it.
What kind of reaction do you foresee, Mr. Ngwero, from the sector?
Like I said, there are 3 options. Number 1, if the manufacturer can absorb it, which I really doubt, if he can absorb it, then it is going to affect his further future investment. And any investment that he has done is going to affect the return that is expected. The other one is that if most likely, which is most likely, is not able to absorb it, he will pass it to the consumers. Once he passes it to the consumer, the price will go up. The consumption of soft drink will definitely come down. And when the consumption comes down, you can just imagine that it's also going to impact the level of capacity utilization. So those are the likely consequences. But the jury is out. Let us see how it's going to play out. But one way or the other, it's going to have a negative impact either on the manufacturer in form of return on his investment, or on the consumer in form of inability or the quantum of the quantity of something that will not be purchased, since the price will likely go up.
Now, let me just also add this. When we are talking about managing finances, it's not only about chasing people for revenue. It's also about cutting down on expenditure. We are not hearing much about what the government is doing to cut down on spending.
Well, government has said in response to that, I remember the finance minister also spoke about that, that look, the problem we have is not that of expenditure, it is that of revenue.
How valid is that? How valid is that? We have expenditure that is ballooning every day. The revenue cannot match up. We are incurring a lot of debt. And yet you say expenditure is not the problem? We have to interrogate that. We have the Oronsoye report. The report has been there for close to 5 or 7 or 10 years, which was, prepared with the aim of rationalizing the ministries and cutting down the cost of governance. What has happened to that? The Auditor General's report on how people have been managing finances, what has happened to it?
To them, we've been having Auditor General's reports since 20.
Yes. I mean, these are accountability issues. It comes back to the issue of the moral question that you raised about when you collect this money from people. What exactly, how accountable are you?
Yes.
Those issues are there.
So you don't think government is accountable?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I mean, you have the Auditor General's report, year 1, year 2, year 3. There is no concrete implementation or sanction or consequences.
Dr. Yusuf, the administration of this thing, of taxes, is also another issue. Which agency collects what tax? Remember the issue of VAT. Cases are still in court from state governments about collection of VAT and all that. Now, we have been told expressly that this one is going to be administered by the Customs Service. How is that going to work? Is it that they collect from the manufacturers?
Yes, you see, this particular tax, this excise tax, is under the Customs and Excise Act. So it's going to be managed by the custom service. And what the custom does, sometimes they even station people at the premises of these companies.
Manufacturers.
Yes. Because the excise tax is not a tax on even your profit. It's a tax on everything that you produce. So whether you are making profit or not,
You are paying the
you are
tax.
paying it, which makes it even more painful. And you know what the customs are, with due respect. This is an opportunity for them to now go into factories, whether you are producing chocolate, all this milk, yogurt, all this, they will invade everywhere and begin to harass the manufacturers. That's another issue that we are not talking about. Because they say, yes, you have this, then you now run into the issue of how much did you produce, how much tax, how much sugar is there, is it carbonated, is it not carbonated? And you create all sorts of problems for manufacturers.
Now,
Do we need all of that at this time?
Well, Dr. Yusuf, this is where we are now. It's already a law. It will be implemented. The question now is, as a private sector practitioner, what would be your recommendation on how the private sector, the organized private sector, engages government for the implementation of this, so some of these issues that you are raising do not arise?
No, you see, the position of the private sector, which also is supported by labor, is for this tax to be reversed. If that does not happen, of course you don't have a choice. You have to go back to the drawing board, review your business model. If you have to cut down your production, so be it. If you have to increase prices, so be it. If the consumers are resisting, you have a lot of options within the context of your business strategy. So that is what the investors will be doing now. But whether that is also good for the economy, it's a different matter. Because you are managing an economy for the sake of the people and for the sake also of investment. Where will an economy be if you don't have investors? So it is the interest of the government and everybody to ensure that you create an environment that is conducive for investors. A win-win. We are not saying that investors should not pay tax, but you should not strangulate them. I read out the list of taxes to you. How many countries in the world have that kind of number of taxes? I'm not saying that everybody pays all those taxes, but many companies pay at least 50% of that. And on top of that, for every regulator that is regulating you, there's an amount you pay. Registration fee, licensing fee, renewal fees, and all of that. All those things are there. So government has a responsibility. If you really want to grow this economy, if you really want to lift 100 million people out of poverty, to be more sensitive to the plight of investors, particularly those who are in the real sector, because the pressure is heavy enough. If you cannot lift the pressure, if you cannot relieve the pressure, don't add to it. That is the point. But of course, engagement is a continuous thing. The manufacturers are engaging, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce is engaging, NASIMA, NECA, it's a continuous thing.
Okay. Mr. Ogunbero, the reason that government gave for introducing this tax is majorly for health reasons, for the health of Nigerians. I'm sure there are more developed countries that have obesity problems, a lot more than Nigeria has, that has issues of diabetes. You know, the numbers would probably be a lot, larger than the numbers in Nigeria. And they have not introduced a sugar tax. So how genuine do you think government is when it comes to this concern about the health of its citizens, which they gave as the main reason for this tax?
Definitely, prevention is better than cure. So we can give it to them on the assumption to say that they really meant well. So but let's now interrogate that particular point deeper. To what extent will imposition of 5 naira on a bottle of pep discourage consumption? if the guy also does not have a choice. Now, when we started this discussion, I listened to the comment that you have about going to the farm. Let me give you a very good example. I am from the northern part of Oyo State. And in December, I traveled home to visit my parents. And because as a Yoruba man, you just want to relax during the period. So my mother knows that I will eat pounded yam during the period. My mother needed to send to Ibadan to buy yam for us to prepare pounded yam in the place that is regarded as food basket of Oyo State.
Wow.
The prices of food has gone so high that the farmers have finished selling everything they have. They've never experienced that kind of inflation before. So they've sold out practically everything they had. Anytime I travel home that way, they give me yam as gifts. Not a single person offered me a tuber of yam. Not one. Now, where am I coming to? Governments seem to be looking at this drink as if it is a luxury. It is more of a necessity. People need this drink. People drink this thing because they don't have a choice. Yeah. Like I said, you can go to any booker with 300 naira and have a decent meal. But with 300 naira and pepper on your side and sausage, most of these low-income earners, they are done for most part of the day. So if government really cares about their health, it's actually to make alternatives available. I do not think that for a man that is already down and do not have a choice, he still needs to hit. He is still going to hit what he can afford, which is what is the lowest in the market. And most likely they will still go for this. So I don't think this is going to solve the problem they intend to. That's my view. Okay. And let us also take note to say that, okay, they really want to address the issue of obesity and diabetes. How good are our hospitals? What is the level of investment that has been done into the hospital? How accessible are medical facilities to anybody? Recently brought somebody to Lagos for medical treatment from the village. We contributed over 3.5 billion naira. This guy cannot even afford, he's a retiree. We have to be looking for money all over the place to get it. So the medical facilities are not even available. The fuel that is available is choked. The number of people they need to serve is unbelievable. So I think governments are just taking the easy way out and giving us a very good reason for which they need to collect this additional tax. But like I said, the jury is out. Let's see how it plays out.
Your last word, Mr. Okungbero, in 20 seconds. What will be your counsel to government? What will be your counsel to the private sector?
Okay, I think my advice to government is very simple. Tax is a very serious matter. It plays significant role in determining whether an entrepreneur will make an investment or not. And it is investment that generates employment. We are currently at the lowest of net investment. Mm-hmm. If government needs to introduce any tax, there should be a minimum lag period of 3 to 5 years to enable the entrepreneur to go back to our tax philosophy. We already have it. Let's have a tax philosophy that's going to last for a period of time whereby investors can plan for maybe 10 to 15 years, and we stick to that philosophy. And if any tax is to be introduced, there should be a lag period by which you introduce it, and people need to make necessary adjustments. These doing it all of a sudden, and a knee-jerk approach is not going to help anybody. Okay. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Yusuf, last word.
Yes, I think first of all is to advise that we are talking about health. We should focus a lot more on health insurance. Okay. A lot of Nigerians are paying out of pocket, and it's extremely painful. Okay. It's extremely difficult. Okay. Dr. Muda Yusuf. Looking at that, and also better engagement, especially by the National Assembly. Okay. It's not every bill that comes that they be passing. They should engage with the people.
Okay. Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, and we also had joining us virtually Mr. Tayo Ogbenro, partner, Tax, Regulatory and People Services, KPMG, Nigeria. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning and looking at this very important issue with us. Sunrise will return in just a moment. Stay put.
Long life go follow you. Strangers go favor you. Great men go honor you.
Okay. Well, that is part of what we're going to be discussing. Boosting internet access. That's what we want to talk about now. Of course, for those who know, Nigeria gained its first rudimentary internet connection in the 90s. But more than Ladipo, how did that hit you? Was that a good thing, or it was something that we didn't have a choice?
Okay, for me, the story is a bit different from everyone else. We had moved online since 2015, so we had basically worked from home from 2015. Whether it's epileptic or not, we have managed to do that because for the kind of things that we do, excuse me, we just discovered that it was a waste of resources staying in an office and having brick and mortar. So I have a project with a client and we sit in their offices. It could be a project that would be like for 2 years, and I probably will go to my office once or twice in 2 years.
Of everything that we're going to do. Otherwise, what then is the talk about a digital economy if we do not have that? So when I asked Mr. Fakile the other time about the thinking of boosting internet access, do you see the thinking geared towards expanding it to the interiors and the rural areas?
Okay. It's a good thing that you talked about that, and I can... interestingly, I've been at the forefront of having some of these conversations for years. So I might not be able to talk for the government, but I can talk for the things that I have been part of. Excuse me, the initiatives that I've been part of and the kind of things that we were proposing. So the right of way conversation, we've gone so many miles down from where we started from. Where we started from, there were huge issues between who should give right of way where. But all of that is being sorted out because right now, if you look at the digital economy policy, which actually, whether it's going to be implemented or not, it's a different conversation, but that document is rich and robust. And it would cover some of the things that we're talking about, providing that access to the last person around the country. The various agencies and the various stakeholders are actually catered for in the digital economy policy, the policy that the government has launched. All those are already catered for: infrastructure, application, the kind of handshake that people should have from different areas. All those things have been catered for in that policy document. But the question that we will now ask is, do we have the will to implement it? And when are we going to have that implementation done? So those are the kind of conversations that we should be having now, rather than the document is there, it's been produced. The government, there's one application for internet penetration is e-government. There's a very robust e-government policy, national policy on e-government, which is being reviewed right now. There was one that was done from I think it was from 2015 to 2020, and that one is being reviewed now going forward. So
is it being implemented? This e-government talk began since 2008 or 2009?
In some certain ways, yes. And I can say that because I was involved in some of the things that brought about the policy.
Mr. Ladipo.
Yes, ma'am.
Even government matters that say you should go online and do this and do that. Halfway through, they bring in the human being who is going to ask you for bribe. You can never see it through electronically from A to Z.
So that conversation is not a policy conversation.
Yes.
That conversation is a human being conversation.
Which also begs the
I always
on that same one.
And I always tell people
my
this.
Apologies,
okay.
Mr. Oladipo. On that, how, well, even though it's a policy about the digital space, the digital space will not operate itself. So it raises the question of how it will be executed and by whom. Because sometimes, perhaps one of the issues Alera is raising here is that some of the people that are going to implement this digital economy plan are analog.
Yeah.
So if they do not know, I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know. But
a lot of education is needed.
A lot of, you see, I used a word, and that word is a will to implement.
Will.
by whom?
By the government.
The powers that be.
The individuals who are stated in the plan to implement them. Now, I always say this because I've seen a lot, okay? And from what I do, I see a lot. So, even in the private sector, I have this conversation that you don't just automate or digitize for digitizing's sake. Your processes have to be right first. If those processes are not right, you automate the inefficiencies with it. That's the way it is. And that's exactly what we have. Okay, so I did a study around some of the applications of e-government around various, and I took one example, just one example. And that example is your passport.
I was coming to the passport.
Lovely document. Lovely. You see, each time I travel with that passport, I'm proud to be a Nigerian. So they drop the passport on a reader anywhere. It reads it. It tells who I am. My fingerprint activates it. Lovely document. But the process to get it done. Now we're having a new lease of life in the sense that the immigration people have, for some reason, somebody within the immigration hierarchy has decided that, no, this has to work. So they're attempting to make it work. Are we there? No. But the fact is that there are steps to make those things work.
Are you saying, therefore, that the human being is now removed from the process of obtaining
They haven't removed them completely.
Okay.
But right now, up to a certain extent, you can actually go online and apply. I did this study on the driver's license too. To prove it, to renew my driver's license, I actually went online. Renewal of my driver's license. Mm-hmm. And they asked me if I wanted to do a recapture. I said no. And they just told me to go to the nearest driver's license office. I should pick which one I wanted to go to. I picked the one. And I went there, printed the document, submitted it. And 4 weeks later, they called me and asked me to pick up my driver's license.
Oh. Okay.
So it's working.
Well,
it's working.
I wish you to work at the ports as well like that. But don't talk about it.
That is interesting.
Well, Mr. Fakile, there's this program being executed about a joint public-private initiative which hopes to achieve 70% broadband penetration by 2025. That's in the National Broadband Plan. Do you see us on the path?
Well,
why do I read doubt in that way?
He says well, and then he pauses.
These things are easier said than done. It's easy to put together a rich policy document. and like we've been saying, implementation is key. Implementation is key. I will say that quality of service in terms of, what the telcos offer, has been a bit epileptic, Yeah, it's epileptic,
Yeah.
I mean, I still experience that between yesterday and this morning, trying to reactivate my WhatsApp, and that has been initializing and initializing. So when we say, if we're having that issue now, and we are talking about broadband penetration by 2025, this is 2022, the question is, how much work have we done vis-a-vis the amount of work that is actually needed to actualize that by 2025?
Well,
So we're not working hard enough to achieve that.
Yeah, because, and again, to make these things possible, the government can't single-handedly implement these things. There has to be collaboration with private sector.
For which reason?
Yeah, but there are private sector players in this thing. There are internet providers.
Let me
Even though many of them have question marks after their names.
Let me cut in here. I used to run an ISP. Okay, I ran an ISP for many years. Of course, at some point we decided that we're not going to do your typical ISP business anymore. So we moved to being a backbone because we saw a niche in the backbone business where NITEL was meant to play and NITEL wasn't there. And we saw a gap, so we decided to play in that place. But I can tell you that we have huge infrastructure challenges, and those challenges are still there. I don't have to think about, as an ISP, I don't have to think about digging the road, even if I get right of way.
Yes.
I don't have to think about digging the road to put fiber cables in the ground.
Okay.
That's a business for somebody. That's the part of private-public partnership. Let somebody be licensed to do that. Yeah. I know that the Lagos State has licensed someone to provide ducts around Lagos. Beautiful. I love that. So all I need to think about is to say, okay, if I even want to draw my own cables, the headache of duct is out of it.
Yeah.
I just subscribe to the duct and pull my cables in there.
Yeah.
But to take it another level, I don't even have to draw my own cables.
Oh, who does that for you?
There's an infrastructure service provider who does that. So all I need to do is to bother about where I get.
Well, this is Nigeria now.
No, but it's
an entire value chain.
I can tell you, it's an entire value chain, and I tell you that.
Mr. Fakile, you own a manufacturing company. You build the road to your factory. You buy your own generator to supply your power. You dig your own borehole to supply water to your factory. That is the country in which we live.
But
that's where we live. Yeah. But that's not where we should live.
For which reason? For which reason?
This is the reality for now.
Yes, but what Mr. Oladipo is saying is that, and we see it in pockets of places where the government is laying fiber cables all over the city of Lagos, talking about the smart city program and all of that. But the intention to lay some 30,000 kilometers to add to the 41,000 kilometers of fiber cables all across Nigeria is still on. You may be able to speak to that. Okay, and now the constraint of regulation, red tape, and the patchwork of state authorities is an issue that a good number of investors are tasked on. So it raises the question again of, are we really adept at integrating internet access all over the nation?
Okay, I'll look at it in two ways. So the first is, what's the plan? What do we want to do? The other is looking at it from the eye of a businessman. Does it make a business sense for me to put my money in and then wait and see what happens? And then another government comes in and there's a somersault of policies, and maybe the guy that is there doesn't like my face, or maybe the guy doesn't think that it should be this guy from
This place.
this bald-headed guy that came from should be the one that would run it, and then he decides to give it to somebody else. So that's those are real serious issues.
Yeah.
And I tell people that the problem we have in Nigeria is not a problem of policies and all of these things. We have those things in loads. But it's the behavioral thing to say, if something starts, we should allow it to finish.
Yeah.
And it's not just from the government, it's also from the private sector. And I keep saying it. The same private sector that we're talking about is this some guy who feels that it's my own person that has gotten there. Is the same one who will go and meet that person and say, don't you think we can do this thing? If me and you will do it together now. And then,
We share.
and, you know, so those are the kind of conversations that we should be having. I think we need a behavioral change. If any of these things will work, it's not technology. The technology is
there.
everywhere. The technology is there. I keep telling people,
Given.
see, we come and we talk about technology. Technology would work. Even if I bring two cans together and put wire between them, those things will talk to themselves. Because that's what technology has said it
But
should.
behavioral thing is issue for you.
The behavioral thing.
Well, Mr. Fakile, while Azalero was talking earlier, it just occurred to me, and this is a fact we all know. In 20 years from now, or 30 years from now, the grandmother was going to be a tapping grandmother.
Sure.
Correct.
I saw a video, I think about 10 or thereabout years ago, of an Asian woman, grandmother, maybe even a great-grandmother, really old looking, and this woman was coding. And so how soon do we, before we get to that point, how realistic is it that a woman in the rural area in Zamfara State will become a tapping?
Why are you picking mother? Why can't it be a
A
grandpa?
grandfather.
Mother, grandfather.
You are a mother. That's what I'm saying. This is gender sensitivity for God's sake, and I'm being accused.
Well, I had to ask the question.
Well, now you've asked, you got the answer. And by the way,
grandpa tapping.
I think first of all, for us to get there, there has to be inclusion. The reason why China, I know, I watched a documentary similar to that where an elderly woman was actually browsing. But you see, the thing I noticed was that she was able to browse comfortably because what she was browsing was in a native language.
Mandarin.
So there has to be inclusion for us to penetrate, the thinking, of people, especially in the rural area, because English can be a barrier to learning. So, and there's this mindset that you are intelligent or being educated means being able to speak in English. No, and that's not true. So if we're able to, include our cultural reality, and digitize our cultural reality, it will be easier for us to penetrate these people and get people to think digitally. So the problem is the fact that they feel they need to learn English, which they probably are not interested in learning in the first instance, So there's that barrier, there's that language barrier, because there's technology.
You're a solutions expert.
Yes.
You're a solutions architect. What would be your recommendation? What's our pathway to that?
Education, training.
But you said that when you say education now, what are you talking about? If that technology is going to be available in their local language of the inclusion that you talked about, recognizing the low literacy level in the country, how do we get there?
Can I take a shot at that,
Please.
Okay. There's this concept of digital literacy, and it's something that for you to have a digital economy that works, your populace must be digitally literate. Digitally literate doesn't mean you can speak English. It just means that you understand what to do when you get on the computer.
In front of the computer.
Whatever language that you get that done, it's immaterial. Now, I'm involved with the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. That's the body that is responsible for giving out or for delegating the internet strings, so .coms, .ng, .this, .that. And I used to sit on the board of the .ng. And one of the biggest initiatives for ICANN today, global initiative, it's called IDN, which is the Internationalized Domain Names, which says that you can have domain strings in your local alphabets.
Okay.
So the Chinese, the Koreans, the Japanese, the Russians, they have IDNs. The Indians, the Indian script, they have IDNs. And those people don't need to learn English. So they can go on the internet and do that. One of the things that I tried to champion is to have the Hausa language has Hausa scripts that looks like Arabic. We can bring that in.
And digitize it.
And digitize it.
When you use a computer, sometimes, it asks you to choose the language. So you
Yes,
mean,
and currently you can select Yoruba, Hausa,
Yeah.
Igbo.
that's what I was going to ask.
Yes, you can.
So we only have Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa.
Hausa.
Just those three.
So
Yeah,
we need,
those three.
apart
So
from
we
the
need
digital literacy,
translators.
we also need people who would
Translators.
actually take that work. I know a great guy
So
who works from Ibadan, who's doing a lot in IDN and localizing computer usage in the local languages in Nigeria. He's doing a
Even
great work with that today.
for Android users, I know because I use a device, Android device, that I select the language, I select Yoruba. I can use the same keyboard for English, for Yoruba, and I have options to put a dot and a mark.
And a mark, yeah.
A dot under my letters and a mark
Above.
So the accent
so
goes
that
on it,
one
yeah.
is there. But that's for Android users. Of course, maybe we can say Android is the largest of such in Nigeria, but not so for laptops and keyboards, physical keyboards that people use and all of that. And I don't even know if it's for digital keyboards as well.
So give me a business case for it. I can get you people who will do that work.
So I mean, to make
It's all about
to make this
making
reality,
business sense.
A lot of collaboration is needed.
So you are talking about this inclusion now, and government is talking about this broadband expansion plan. Do you think if you're going to, recommend this inclusion thing, how should it be cascaded? We shouldn't expect the federal government to do it all.
Yeah,
the right of way conversation, for instance,
No,
that we talked about,
even
has
sorted.
to do with states. So what role do you think the locals, you talked about, and the translator, what role do you think that they can play, and who should be interfacing with them?
Okay, first of all, for that to be a reality in all of these areas, for the broadcast to happen of this new knowledge, I mean, that infrastructure there has to be infrastructural expansion. The infrastructure has to be expanded. And that's where the government, in collaboration with the private sector, comes in. There has to be a base upon which this reality will be built. The reality of translators working with programmers, working with server architects, because if you don't have that base infrastructure, then it will be difficult, but even without expansion currently, it's just that it's going to be much more tedious to do. I mean, like Mr. B rightly said, a business case has to be drafted, for that purpose. You can get what do you call it? Organizations to offer some sort of grant that would allow translators collaborate with programmers and, foot soldiers who will go into these rural areas to broadcast, this knowledge in their natural
Who
language.
takes the lead on this, Mr. Radikwa, is where my question would be.
So who takes the lead? There has to be a deliberate policy to say this is the direction that we're going.
My apologies. I would like you to expand that a little bit because let me cite the example of Silicon Valley. I don't know, I don't think or know if there is any such in Nigeria now, nor is there a think, if there is a thinking around that. Just a second, just a second.
There's one. Oh.
Just a second.
Me, I know one.
Just a second, just a second.
Thank you.
Yes. Just a second.
Yes.
There is a proposition of the AFDB to build special agro-industrial parks in different areas in Nigeria. That's for agriculture. Do you see a need or a viability of such a thing being built for technology if we are going to take it seriously?
I'm the wrongest person to ask that question.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I don't believe in handouts. And I don't believe...
No, not necessarily AFDB handing
so,
it.
AFDB
we have a digital...
Say, okay, we want to help
we have
you
a digital...
just
a second. We have a digital economy ministry. Okay, so if someone is going to take the lead and facilitate that kind of infrastructure, do you see it happening?
Okay, let me backtrack a bit. Okay. There's an agency of government that is saddled with that today. I should know. I played a part in the document I brought that agency about. So, that's NIDA. The work of NIDA is actually to do IT development. Yeah. So all of these things that we're talking about are things that actually should be looked at. So you look at it's a whole value chain like we talked about earlier. So we look at specific parts of the value chains and then bring about things that we can do to attract investment into that side. That's what NIDA should do. Whether that's what they're doing today, I don't know.
It's another matter.
Okay. Now, you're asking about Silicon Valley. We already have one. Yeah. That grew without anybody's intervention. Yeah. And I can tell you that it's still growing. It's massive. Every other house in Yaba hosts and houses a tech company. Whether it's small, whether it has started, whether it's just in one laptop, there's a tech company in every other house in Yaba.
Not even Computer Village in Ikeja.
No, Computer Village. You see, that's
selling computers.
You see, those are the interesting things. Yeah. Computer Village is actually your hub for everything hardware.
Hardware, yes. Yes.
I worked in one of my former lives. I worked for a distribution company that represented one of the top OEMs at that time, and a multinational company. When the guys came to Nigeria, I was the first Nigerian they recruited. When they came to Nigeria, they were asking questions around hardware and everything. I just told them, the Oibo that came, I said, come, let's go to somewhere that you will see something that you have never seen before. I took the guy to Computer Village. The guy opened his mouth, he couldn't breathe. You could actually find out that this guy was shocked. He had never seen anything like that before, where you can sell computer hardware like you're selling pepper and tomatoes.
Yes.
And the guys were shocked. I told him, I said, look, I know how many computers I've coupled myself by buying components here. And the guy looked at me. So we went back to the office. It gave him a different... So we have various OLCs like that in the tech industry. And what we just need is a deliberate policy to organize and harness the... Nigerians are extremely intelligent and extremely progressive when it comes to things like this.
Resilient.
Yeah. And no, I didn't want to use the word resilience. So it's just that we need somebody who can be deliberate about... But if you ask me, whether government is working or government is not,
the people are moving on.
People are moving and people are doing things.
Mr. Fakile, let's talk about...
Sorry, just 1 second. If you anyone, anywhere in any part of Nigeria, where we have those technology silos that, such as Mr. Oladipo has talked about and Mr. Fakile has also mentioned, please let us know. The email address is on the screen for you, sunrise@
sunrisectv at channelstv.com. Let's know so that at least maybe if government is not aware, at least let's make them aware. Now that we know there is a Silicon Valley in Yaba.
Yes, let's talk about, I have to be careful because I'm speaking to the experts now. Let me just call it access to the internet.
Yeah.
Maybe you call it broadband or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is all these ISPs who are providing internet service and getting us to pay subscriptions for them, monthly subscriptions and all that. Either the ones where they lay cables or the ones where they give you a modem.
Or the mobile, the one attached to your SIM that you...
Why is it that their service is epileptic? Do you happen to know?
Well...
well, you both are laughing.
Yeah.
Did I say anything out of turn?
No, you didn't. You didn't. It's a good question. Very, very, very.
But
very...
let me say it again. Don't let's beat ourselves.
Okay.
It happens everywhere.
Okay.
There are outages everywhere.
The reason why she's concerned is because she just returned from the US. And she's afraid that it doesn't sound like what she experienced.
No, you can't be
just
comparing.
Before I left, there was downtime from my provider. There's only one provider that works in the estate where I live. I told you about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Lagos, yes.
Okay.
And for 2 days, nothing. The whole estate, nobody could access the internet.
Was it broadband?
Whatever
Even
band.
if it's narrow band.
You see, whatever.
Which one is
whatever
broadband? Which
band.
one is narrow
See,
band?
for me, whatever
Okay,
band.
the late cable.
So let me just speak to you wearing.
That's broadband, eh? When the lay cable.
No, it depends. It depends.
It could be fiber optics.
Let me pardon you from the lenses.
I'm analog. Please don't confuse me.
Let me speak to you from the lenses of someone who was an operator.
Okay.
Now, there are a lot of challenges that people have. So for someone who laid cables into your estate, it could just simply mean, it could just be as little as somebody drove on the fiber cable and there was a cable cut. Okay. And it would take them some time to fix it.
My issue is they should tell us.
They should
and
tell
apologize
you.
to us.
That now is a customer service issue from the company that provides that. So that's on the technology matter. That's a customer service matter. So this is a business thing. It's not a technology thing anymore.
The cable cut is technology now.
No, so the cable cut
can happen.
Can happen. Okay, there was a time when a major fiber optic provider so you have in the value chain, there's the external part of it where you bring internet access into the country.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to be technical.
Okay.
Where you bring internet access into the country. And then you have the internal distributive network where you take it to around the country, and then you have the last mile where you take it to the person who is using it.
Okay.
The fastest to achieve that is wireless, which is why it's popular with the fiber.
Those modems.
The modems and also the mobile phones. Okay. So, but where you have cable has this possibility of being able to carry bigger bandwidths.
Yeah.
It's more reliable,
fiber optics. So it's a lot more reliable.
And
however,
approximately how many companies have fiber optics in Nigeria?
Oh, there are quite a number of them.
Oh, okay.
There are quite a number. It's not just one. It's not one, it's not two. There are quite a number of them.
Okay.
In fact, new ones spring up every day.
Okay. Right.
The market is huge.
So we're coming now.
We're coming up. The market is huge.
Small.
You see, the interesting thing is, like I said earlier, is the business case for it. So a guy gets a license. I got a license from NCC to provide telecom services across the country. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my spreadsheet and ask myself, where do I get the fastest return? And that's where I will go to.
Exactly.
Internet service.
No, I mean, which part of the country will I get my fastest
okay,
return?
Lagos.
That's where we go to. So you do Lagos.
Abuja.
So it's Lagos,
Lagos,
Abuja,
Abuja,
Port Harcourt. It used to be Port Harcourt, but Port Harcourt is a bit on this.
Shaky.
Yeah, now. So it's Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and Benin. So I spread that out. Benin, because at least one person in every family is abroad, so they need to
get in touch with them.
So you see, it's funny, but it's a business case.
Yeah. Okay. And that's the reason why there has to be a deliberate attempt to cater to the other regions of the country.
Let's begin to wind down now, gentlemen. A lot of meetings in urban Nigeria now hold virtually. People who want to do business with anyone in the world, in these days of COVID-19, everyone wants to hold business meetings, and they're holding those business meetings virtually and all of that. And it raises the question that my colleague raised earlier about internet penetration. Unfortunately, some of those conversations ought to be had with people, should be had with people where internet penetration isn't as strong. We've had occasions where we have guests in the virtual space, but we're not able to take them as well because of the low bandwidth where they are and all of that. So how do we begin to reduce those incidences? Let's see how quickly we can take that.
Well, we're going back to what we said initially, which is to expand infrastructure. And there has to be a deliberate attempt from the government policy to ensure that the private sector is urged to cater. I mean, so it's not just entrepreneurship now, it's social enterprise, where you are not just doing it for personal gain, you are doing it for gain and also for impact. So we want to ensure that, yeah, Lagos is saturated. You can get bandwidth here in Lagos. It's easy. You can get in Benin. You can get in Kano. But the areas like Akure, like Oshogun, Iseyin, like Sokoto, Zamfara, there has to be a deliberate policy that urges the private sector to cater to those places.
What impetus would you be asking government to provide for the private sector who will facilitate that?
Finally.
So finally, what should the government provide for those people? An enabling environment. So we started with the discussion on right of way and all of that. That's been settled, but there has to be a final solution to that. So somebody wants to draw cables around the country, it should be able to have somewhere that he can go to. My suggestion has always been, and it still is, let's put let's warehouse all the right of ways into one box, and then have a policy that this is what is going to go to who within your territory if anybody uses that. That will solve the problem.
Isn't that the suggestion you made about NIDA?
Sorry?
You don't think NIDA can do that significantly?
Okay,
I
think that's more in the purview of the NCC rather than NIDA.
Okay.
To do.
Well, be Oladipo, a business and management consultant. You didn't tell us the other lives that you've lived. Thank you so much.
Many other lives.
Thank you for being a part of our program this morning, as well as Adeshola Fakile, who is a creative technologist and solutions architect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for a very interesting conversation.
Yeah, and for also reminding us that the grandmoms of 30 years from now are tapping. We'll be back after now.
We have started tapping.
Well, thank you very much for remaining with us. Future Africa Leaders Foundation, that's what we're talking about next. Of course, that's a non-governmental organization which identifies, celebrates, and supports young Africans who have demonstrated exemplary leadership by impacting their generation positively through education, youth empowerment, and mentoring through other projects aimed at building young people and preparing them for a positive future. I'm particularly excited about this one because I still maintain that if we do not take care of young Africans now,
Africa's future is lost. And it's also something I've heard a number of African leaders talk about. But let's talk to the young people themselves.
Tony Olumulu Foundation, he ends that promo by saying, the future of Africa is in your hands.
And that's...
You just echoed that again.
And no, I said that because, I mean, let me not begin with my own lamentations. Well, Programs and Operations Officer of Future Africa Leaders Foundation is here with us this morning, Pastor Ayodele Adedeji. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
He is here in company of Nevis Nzumichia, who is the 2021 Future Africa Leaders Awards as Fala Star Prize winner. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
As well as Ms. Anna Maneno, who is Fala winner, 2021 Fala winner from South Sudan. Ah, man, I like this smile. I wish I could just recognize or represent South Sudan. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
Incidentally, Gwe Michael Wawa is also with us, but he's not on set. So he is the 2020 winner, Star Prize winner. But let me begin.
From Cameroon.
From Cameroon. Oh, by the way, Nevis is from Cameroon. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Pastor Adedeji. Tell us about this Future Africa Leaders Foundation. A number of people know about it, but all they do is know about it, not really much.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to be on set today, this morning, and I firstly want to say a big thank you to our president, the patron of the Future Africa Leaders Foundation, by the name Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakilome. Pastor has done a lot through young people and has invested so much in young people across the continent, Africa. And our inspiration, firstly, is connected to the fact that Africa houses or accommodates the largest young number of people around the world. How do I mean? When you look at statistics, almost 60% of Africa's population is under 25, and that ranks Africa as one of the largest or one of the world's youngest population around the world. You know, so it means that Africa. It means that young people should be given attention. Young people should be given the opportunity to express themselves, and the need for the Future Africa Leaders Foundation. At the Future Africa Leaders Foundation, we do many things, but one of the major things we do is to explore great potentials, because we know young people have the potential to bring transformation to their world.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, these young people that you have pointed to. I shouldn't have actually come to you first. I should have done ladies first today. Anna, let's begin. What's your own specialty? Part of what the foundation aspires to do is to nurture financial, political, technological, intellectual, and economic greats who are inspired to discover and execute sustainable solutions to Africa's challenges. What's your own interest?
Thank you, sir. Thanks for this opportunity. First of all, I would like to appreciate and thank the founder and the president of the Future Africa Leaders Foundation, that's Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakilome, for this privilege, right away from South Sudan, for me to talk in Nigeria. Pastor always says the future of Africa is in our hands. And if you notice that Africa is one of the richest continents on planet Earth, but people have victimized themselves. Most of the Africans have victimized ourselves. When I say Africans, it means to our smallest communities. We have so many opportunities. We have so many things that we can do beyond what the government can do. But then something I've realized about us is fold our hands and then complain about the government. Oh, the government has not done this. The government is not doing this. But then you've not asked yourself, what have you done? that the government needs to contribute its own. Now, like, take the aspect of South Sudan. The news about South Sudan is always the negative news. But then there's something good in South Sudan. Thank God I'm on site to know there's something good about South Sudan. But then because the outside world is the one that exposes what is out. But then I come to myself, should I also fold my hands and complain that the government isn't doing anything? Should I also be the person who will send the propaganda that there's killing, there's insecurity? What else can I do? So that's why I got out from my comfort zone to reach out to others, to the needy, to the refugee camps, to do the different activities that I do, because I feel I am the future of Africa.
What are some of those things that you did?
I did mentorship programs with the adolescent age girls. I reached out to the refugee camps in Uganda. I organized sports activities, reproductive health with the women, educational health, because there was a school I went to and I realized out of the 1,020, there were only 20 girls in the total school. It hit me so hard. So I had to reach out to the different communities. There was a time we had to do filming to reach out to a big audience. So we produced the film and went to every zone, because in a camp there are different zones, like regions. So reach out to them. Then back in South Sudan, I was part of the active members of the South Sudan Youth Fight Against COVID-19. Through that, we were able to reach out to different communities, sensitize them, but then we realized it wasn't enough. Reach out, giving them food. We raised...
Wait, Anna. Maybe I'm lost here. So with all that is happening in South Sudan, so it's not, you're essentially saying it's not as bleak,
Grim,
as grim, as hopeless as
we are made to believe.
Made to believe.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
People are still living normal lives.
Very normal, ma'am. South Sudan is one of the best land. Like, very. I love that country. We have the best land, but then when you're outside, they always scare you from South Sudan.
Me too. I love Nigeria. Don't come back. Well, Kevin, right? Let me ask you. Sorry, Nevis. What's been your own experience? How did you? What were you doing? I mean, I've heard that she is a philanthropist. Maybe I should. Thank God I'm not a refugee, an IDP person myself. Maybe I would have met her. But what's your own specialty?
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for having me on set. Like I said, my name is Ometia Nevis, the 2021 Star Prize Fowler winner from Cameroon. It's a great honor to be here to share with you my story, my journey. I'm a tech innovator and a community builder. So my work, my day-to-day activities are centered around technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. I would like to start by thanking the president of the Future African Leaders Foundation for the great vision he has installed in raising young future African leaders in transforming Africa. So we are a product of that vision, and we are being an example to other young people to tell them that there is hope for Africa. We are that light, and Africa can only be built by Africans. So my day-to-day activities are centered around doing training programs with kids. So I train kids how to build.
What age?
Kids from 7 to 17 years, kids and teens. How to
and teens, okay.
Teens, yeah, how to build robots. You know, a lot of times we see things on TV, we feel like, oh, these things are only done by whites. Is it even possible to do it in Africa? But with the little resources that we have, like she just said, we cannot sit back and complain. We can't sit back and complain. We have to be at the forefront.
But Nevis, one of the questions that comes to my mind is, you know, a good number of people say that young people are largely laid back. Many of them just want to, what's the word we use? Blow. In local parlance in Lagos, they say japa. They just want to get out of the country, get out of the continent altogether and all of that. So how are you able to tell these teens, because I'm pretty sure that the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, they've been hearing them say, look, we want to get out of here. And you are saying you're able to persuade them to wait. How are you able to do that?
You know, for over the years, I've really been doing so well in my field, and I've received a lot of calls from out that, Nevis, you are wasting in Cameroon, you are wasting in Africa. Why don't you come to the US? Why don't you apply to MIT? I've even had the opportunity to go, but I said, no, it's not yet time. Let me first of all, and you see, this was my first time traveling out of my country, and imagine coming with a future African Leaders Fund and coming to win an award is something to show that there is hope. If I'm in Cameroon, and if I'm in Africa, I can still do every other thing that if I go out there in the US, or in the UK, wherever I am, I can still do it. And this is just to show that there's a possibility, and to tell young people that we just have to have a vision and a purpose, because that is what should drive us. Because I know a lot of time people just rush to go to these other countries because they don't really have a vision or a purpose. But I'm working with a vision and a purpose. That is why I'm not in a haste to move out or something, because I know that I'm going somewhere.
Probably easy for you to say. Is it as easy for you as well, Anna? You're able to persuade people to stay in South Sudan?
Yes.
With all of the noise that's going on?
Yes.
With all of the quote-unquote hopelessness that some of them always point to?
Yes. Home is always home.
I agree with you.
And
I couldn't
there's
agree
freedom
more.
and liberty at home.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Like, it's not my first time traveling out of the country. I've been moving out to represent my country. But I always want to come back home. So I want to, it's like, yes, I can come to other country, but the country you admire you can build your country the same way as the other country you want to be in.
You
Yes,
can
we have
build
so
your
many.
country to be one that everybody will admire.
Yes, sir.
I like
Yes,
that.
Master.
Okay, Pastor. Now, this foundation organizes this program and parts with approximately $125,000.
Yes.
That in Nigerian money is a lot of money.
Absolutely.
So I'm very interested in how you select these winners. You've come along with 3 of your winners today, 2 from 2021 and 1 from 2020. How were the selections made?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. The whole selection process it's a rigorous and a tedious one, because we have quite a number of young people who make applications for the Future Africa Leaders Award, because young people are doing so much, and they also want their works to be seen. And so we find a pool of young people applying for this
Let's see
particular
if they can attract some funds to continue the work, right?
Do you blame them?
Yeah, because that's also our contribution and pastors' contribution to young people to further expand their work. If they can be empowered financially, then we can see more of that work, gain grounds in Africa, or particularly in their countries. And so when we send out information through our website is www.futureafricaleadersfoundation.org. So when you log into the foundation's website, there you are able to apply for the Future Africa Leaders Foundation. Of course, we just ended the Future Africa Leaders Award on the 31st of December 2021, and that is where Nevis emerged as the Star Prize winner.
Star Prize?
Yes.
Congratulations. Let's see your trophy, by the way.
Yeah, it is. Right.
And this is Africa. You have won Africa.
Great, great.
And so, we have
what did Anna win?
Some juries who...
What did Anna win?
Anna, she's one of the top 10 winners.
Top 10 winners. And that's why you have your own...
Thank you.
Plug.
Oh. You have won Africa too.
So before we can emerge 10 winners, we have to evaluate their work.
How many entries do you have per time?
We have over about 2,000, over 2,000.
And out of 2,000, you choose 10.
10.
So their work has to be outstanding.
Very outstanding. Before then,
well done, guys.
Before then, we also have our 30 nominees, that we have the opportunity to showcase some outstanding work carried out by 30 of our nominees. And it is out of that 30 nominees that 10 of these winners emerge. So the juries evaluate and analyze their work, you know, how they were able to carry it out, and go through all the criteria. You know, it must be relevant, it must have international significance, it must have impacted a community deeply, and several other things like that. So several calls are being pulled through them also to also further investigate what they have carried out and done.
What kind of challenges have sorry for butting in. What kind of challenges did you have to encounter in getting to these numbers?
Well, several. Okay, in choosing, right? The challenge of, I would say the challenge of choosing, of selection. Yeah, because there are still more other people that have done great things, but you see, you are looking for that distinguishing element that separates.
I'm happy that the young people are giving you that problem. Let me come to you, Anna. In speaking in encouraging other young people, both of you will speak to those, but in encouraging other young people, first of all, speak to the reality of the challenges that young people have and why many of them are disillusioned. How have you been able to circumvent that?
One thing is the mind. The mind is the most powerful thing before you can do anything. When you realize, when you discover yourself and realize what you really needed, there's a way how you get out to get a solution. I also blame we young people. The social media world has robbed us of our wisdom. There's so much into social media than reading. Reading is powerful because life is full of choices, and the choices shall be based on the knowledge you have.
But you see, the mind thing that you talked about is also a function of the environment or what is available to them. Nevis, you agree with that? Yes. That it's a function of what is available to them and the information that they are influenced by, you know, is in their environment. High level of poverty, hopelessness, policies of government that doesn't seem to support them at various levels in Africa. So convincing the young people, the young African, to not be disillusioned must be a tough work. What would be your recommendation, especially with this impetus of an award that you have?
Okay, so talking about that, one thing that I would just like to encourage young people out there is to focus on creating value. You should have a niche. What is that particular thing that you can be known for? Because, for example, one of the projects that brought me to the Future of Canada's Foundation, or gave me one of the awards, is, so many years, about 3 years ago, I had this, I saw this problem and I was worried about how I could solve it. I did not have the means to go about developing that solution. But I could not just stop because there's no money, there's nothing. I had to just keep looking for ways that I thought it could help me to realize that. So it was a 3D printer, so a 3D printer, and it's a very, very complex machine. These are machines that they cost hundreds of thousands. And I just had to say, but there are normal printers that you print on a sheet of paper like that. So I could harness parts from these things, put them together, e-waste, and I was able to build a 3D printer. You see, if I was just sitting back and complaining, and then at the end of the day, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And finally, I was able to build a 3D printer. So I'm just trying to say that there's a possibility in everything, and if you can create value out of it, definitely you can be able to move. Because just like I was talking about traveling out, once you create value, people will look for you, money will look for you. So that's like I'm saying.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Pastor, you haven't told us what inspired the creation of this foundation and the work that it's doing.
Okay. Pastor says that Africa can only be built by Africans. That's a quote from Most Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakilome. Like I said, he's the patron, the president of the foundation. And so our inspiration stems from the fact that we have a lot of young people that can be mentored appropriately because of the resources that is inside of them. You see, when a young person meets somebody that can mentor him, he stands the chance of giving his world the expression of the resources that is built inside of him. He never spoke about the fact that he's a tech innovator. I mean, if we were just sitting down there and allow young people to just flit around or, do nothing or not engage them, we wouldn't have gotten him. So Pastor deemed it fit to set up this foundation so that we can explore the potentials of young people. Because we know that Africa has a whole lot of resources, and that resources is plugged into the heart of the young people. And so for us to be able to bring solution to Africa as a continent, we need to mentor them, we need to build them, we need to explore that potential, we need to
It definitely is a tough work. It's incidentally, and I don't know how, I'm not going to ask you this question, but it's a fact that the 2021 Future Africa Leaders Awards, Nevis, that we spoke with earlier, is from Cameroon. Yeah. So also the 2020 Future Africa Leaders Awards, Gwe Michael Wawa, is also from Cameroon, and he's joined us as well. You are the old winner.
Yes, sir.
And it just so happens that both of you are from Cameroon. Are you also a tech, what's that word again? Tech
innovator. I'm actually into tech too.
You're also into tech?
Tech and agriculture.
Tech and agriculture. I'm interested in that. Okay. What did you do?
Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity to be on set with you. I also want to thank the President of the Future Africa Leaders Foundation, Reverend Dr. Chris, for the investment which is having the lives of young people across Africa. I've benefited so much from this investment, and I'm actually helping others to realize their potentials as far as what Africa has for them.
Oh, you come to that. Tell us about the agriculture part first.
As concerning agriculture, basically we are into plantain value chain addition. So we have invested so much. I've invested so much in my team on plantain value chain.
What do you call plantain in Cameroon?
Details.
What do you call it in your town? Why are you laughing? In my town, we call it dodo. We call it ikpekere. What do you call it in your?
No, we have dodo.
And the crunchy part is what we call ikpekere. What's your own?
Well, we just generally call it plantain. Even in native language, they have to use plantain as.
Okay, what do you do to the plantain?
Now we transform plantain into plantain flour. And we also have plantain chips that we make from plantain.
Okay.
Yes, and
that's what we call it, the plantain chips.
The plantain chips. So, but the project actually we had to train, because there are many students who don't know how to set up plantations, but they are studying agriculture in university. So we had to build a training facility where we can train them on modern techniques. Now, traditionally, you have to remove one sucker from maybe a tree that has 3 suckers around it. But we had to come up with innovative techniques that you can use a small sucker and produce 10 or 15 or 20. So with that 20, you can easily set up a plantation with 1,700 plantain suckers. So with that technique, we had to train many other students.
What did you call them? Plantain suckers?
Suckers.
Suckers?
Yes, plantain suckers. They're small plantlets. Where you actually have to plant one after. When you see big plantations that have thousands of plantain, they don't actually move from one stalk to another. They have to do some propagative techniques. So we're training you on those techniques, and when you actually produce that way, you can now start selling to big people who have big plantations. You can also set up your plantation. One of the things I did when I received my own grant from the Future Africa Foundation was to set up my own plantation. I bought 10 hectares of land, and so far I've already planted 2 hectares with plantain.
How much was your prize, by the way?
I received $35,000.
$25,000.
$35,000.
$35,000. Yes. Okay. Now, how has this award impacted you and the work which you're doing, apart from, okay, you spent the money buying land, fine.
Now, first of all, the award gave me a higher voice. Sometimes when you're talking to young people that you can be this special, you can be this innovative, they don't believe you if they don't know that you have been recognized. With the African mindset, in fact, with the Cameroonian mindset, they want to believe someone when they know that this person has been on an international platform.
I've been to
And here you are on international television.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I attended the Tokyo International Conference for African Development in 2019 in Yokohama, Japan. And when I came back, I was carrying out activities, but many people were not really seeing it as something very valuable. But now, actually seeing that this young man who has been doing this thing for this long time has been recognized on a global platform. People were calling me from different countries all across the globe. Now, when you tell someone that, okay, this is what made me to reach this level, a young person seeing that is enough inspiration. And with that inspiration, we're able to reach many more youths. When we get to university, we tell university students, okay, we can do this, this, and this. You see them rallying behind you without doing any. So we have actually received that platform where we can inspire many more youths. And not just inspiring them, but giving them the opportunity. Because I can tell you, you can start up an agricultural venture. But if I don't show you the way, if I don't have an enabling environment for you, you end up doing nothing. So we've received that platform to create inspiration, and we've also received the enabling environment to engage many other youths into.
So that's what you have done over the past 1 year.
Absolutely.
Okay. What are your own aspirations, Anna, in the next 1 year? Are you going to also go to Japan,
South Sudan,
Germany, and all of this?
I think before I've gone back to my country, I've been asked to be one of the speakers in the United Nations General Assembly on peace process, because I've been to their platforms.
Did that also affect how people perceived you back in South Sudan?
When I talk, I do filming.
Okay.
I'm an actress. So there are people who watch my movies. When I get excited wanting to know about, so I don't use it to talk to them how excited I am as an actress. I use it to change their mindset and their lifestyle. This award, I know it's something beyond, because when I was part of the You Lead One Young Africa, I happened to be with the former president of Tanzania. The honor he gave me, the recognition, I was appointed. I was allowed to be part of our parliament. I'm not in any political seat, but I was allowed to be a representative of the young women of South Sudan. So with this, I know the doors that have been opened are beyond what they've already opened. Congratulations to all the winners, first of all. Congratulations to all of them. When I met the other 9, I asked myself, we're only 2 ladies. I asked myself, how did I win? Because, oh goodness, Africa has talent. The work that they have done in the communities is just beyond. It's all amazing. Like you're inspired, like you've not done enough. I was already doing the mentorship program, reaching out to schools, talking to the youths, to the young people, changing their mindset, how we can build South Sudan. Just like the news I've had, we can change that narrative. After 1 year, you'll hear a different story about South Sudan. So I am going back as one thing I'm going to really encourage the young people to do is agriculture. Because majority of our food in my country is being imported. Agriculture is taken lightly. And now imagine I go back, talk to them about poultry, talk to them about a plantation. How about we close the other border that imports food and we use our local food?
I can see the collaboration is already starting here. So, Pastor, well, is that something you're looking forward to, by the way?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we are already mentoring. I'm already mentoring some youths that are in different countries on agricultural ventures. The African Development Bank has been singing the song. Many countries are singing the song of getting more youth into agriculture. So collaborating with many of them to pick up agricultural ventures is something I'm so passionate about, and I would really love to see many other African youths taking up ventures in agricultural space.
Okay. By the way, did you study agriculture?
No, I had a master's in telecommunication networking engineering.
Oh dear.
Pause. You left technology
to go into agri.
He's tech and agriculture.
Oh, you are in tech and agriculture.
So I have my technological side, but I'm also into the agriculture side.
So how much tech are you applying to your agri?
Well, for now, we are working on the agricultural technologies first. We are harnessing the agricultural technologies first. And after that, our long-term vision is to see how we can increase the audience of our products that we produce. Because there's a whole lot of technology in the agricultural process. I was just hearing that they are producing plantain, but I didn't know there was so much technology into it. So we are trying to see how we can increase productivity with the agricultural technologies they have first, and then adding value, because the value addition is a whole process on its own. So that's how we're applying tech into agriculture.
So we could go on this conversation because it's really, really exciting. I'm even, if anything, buoyed to continue this young people aspiration. I wish I could carry a political party and say Young People of Africa Party, but unfortunately I can't do that. Pastor Ayodele Adedeji, we can only say well done for all that you do for Africa and doing it forward. Programs and Operations Officer, Future African Leaders Foundation. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Goye Michael Wawa, 2020 Future Africa Leaders Awards Star Prize winner. Thank you very much. All the way from Cameroon, Nevis Zomechia, 2021 Future Africa Leaders Awards Star Prize winner, also from Cameroon. Maybe there is a conspiracy there, I don't know. I don't think there is, though. Thank you also, Nevis, as well as Miss Anna Maneno, 2021 Future Africa Leaders Awards winner from South Sudan. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time this morning. So there you go. We are up with the home stretch after this break. Please stay with us.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Well, we have DJ Case in the house.
Thank you.
Woo, 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 woo.
Pleasure to be here.
He didn't bring the machine. There's an instant replay machine. You just hit applause and then you go on like that, you know.
Yeah,
that's the
create the
magic.
atmosphere.
Applause, drum roll.
That's the magic of radio. I mean,
Wow.
no one will see that, unfortunately, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
DJ Case is an award-winning DJ. And don't be deceived by that disc jockey part of him, yeah? DJ Case is a man of many parts. His interest in entertainment began while he was studying in Reading. Former Chocolate City DJ has performed in several popular events and shows since he rose to stardom. By the way, DJ Case, his real name is Derry Phillips. So, DJ Case, you were studying in Reading. You were not studying DJing, certainly.
Yeah,
what were you studying?
I was studying finance, Masters in Finance.
Masters in Finance. Can you please let us know exactly how come you went from Masters in Finance to become a disc jockey?
I mean...
Which in my country, by the way, well, I don't know about these, you know, these days, anything a young person wants to do, the parents just say, just be the best that you can be. But in those days, DJ, lay about here now.
Times have changed. It's a different world we live in now. I mean, at the core of it, I'm a creative. I think that's the most important part of what I do. I apply creativity to all aspects, whether it's my finance background, whether it's advisory.
What's creativity in finance, please?
You have to structure things in a very creative way. So in a way that would you maximize portfolio for your clients.
I see.
Yeah, so you have to think outside the box. You have to watch the trends. You have
And
to see the
charts. You know, you the figures a bit.
Because when you hear
creatively,
you know, there's something in finance. Is it finance or accounting? There's something they call ways and means. Is that part of creativity?
Well, as long as it's ethical. You know, you like to trend on the ethical side of things.
So how did your parents take it when you were going to become after graduation, you said you were going to be a DJ?
Well, I actually started DJing in university. That's how everything started. But like most parents, they needed a while to adjust to it. But I think by the time I told the world a couple of times, they knew this was a bit different.
Told the world?
Yes.
How did that happen?
BET, MTV, Channel O, you know, a lot of platforms. I did it a few times.
Oh, doing what, really?
DJing.
This is no small DJ.
Yeah, I think they didn't understand it, and it took a while. But like I said, when I did it a few times, when I went around the world a few times, they understood, okay, you know, I mean, they know the kind of son they have. I try to apply excellence to everything I do. It's one of my core values. So I guess they just realized that whatever it is, I put my heart in. And as an entrepreneur, as a go-getter, someone who's trying to do the best he could, whatever aspect it is I find myself in, I always try and do 100%.
Did the fact that you are Fernandez's grandson,
Yes.
did it have anything to do with your choice and permission to go ahead with it from your parents?
For my parents, not so, because I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur, so I always had my businesses on the side, and you know, once they
While
asked
you
me,
were in school?
yes.
What kind of businesses were you doing?
While I was in school, it was a t-shirt business I started. After when I graduated and I started my finance background. Also, I must mention, I'm a trader. I've always been a trader. I've worked in different banks. So trading fixed income securities. So it's not as if I threw in my certificates.
Okay. So
I'm
you
a
still use
certified
it
banker.
occasionally?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Okay.
So I mean, they, as I said, they knew I'm a serious person, and whatever aspect or whatever career I decide to pick, what I do now is coaching. One of the things I do, so I emphasize on the need for people to plan. You know, whatever it is you want to do, as long as you have a steady plan, you have ways of getting it, and you have steps you're going to take towards getting towards your goal, you can achieve anything.
No,
So-
it's easy. Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's easy for you. Well, would you say it's been a little easier for you to get into your passion because you know you had educated your parents?
I think nothing has been handed over to me. Nothing. Entertainment industry, there really isn't any barrier to entry. And for that reason, you have to fight for that limelight. You know, you have to prove yourself. No one is going to do you any favors. You know, it's a tough industry, very tough industry. So it's not somewhere, in fact, even coming from somewhat of a privileged background is definitely not a plus in that kind of industry. You know, you have to prove yourself. You have to be above standard, you know. Not only that, an incredible amount of hard work, incredible amount of finance, networking, you know, it's a tough industry. So it's not for the faint-hearted, and I think only the strong survive.
So where are you DJing right now?
What I'm doing now is I'm more into the production side of things. So I took a break from the industry, did some soul searching, and I then came to the realization that we are all here to help others out. We're all here to add value to others' lives. And in as much as I love DJing and I continue to DJ, there's only a certain amount of people that can impact in whatever venue or whatever platform I'm on. But with music, that lasts forever. So I put a lot of attention into production. I've learned about 3 to 4 instruments, and you know, I've decided to take it to the next level, and which is why I dropped EP called Venus and Mars, and that has been doing very well.
You're now singing?
Yes, I am.
Well, he did say it's in the entertainment industry, and it's quite a big one.
Yes, it is.
But you know,
It is,
getting through. I mean, you talked about incredible amount of hard work. Many are just chasing the limelight,
fame,
and the perks that come with it.
Yes.
But getting there, you talked about value. How does that drill down to the person who just wants to use that word that you guys use in the industry, blow? Value addition and blowing, something. In fact, when I hear blow, the first thing that comes to my mind is the natural one, explosives. But that's definitely not what's been talked about. So adding value is, I don't know, would you see adding value as a major objective or a major criteria for many people who get into the industry?
Yes, I mean, I think that is the reason why there's such a high turnover. I mean, I've been in the industry for 10 plus years, a decade plus, and I've seen them come and go. And the difference between those who have the long-staying power, you know, the likes of the Whiskey, David O's, the P Squared, is because they're thinking about the long term. You know, they're focusing on quality, they're not following trends, they're not trying to blow, as you mentioned. You know, they're literally trying to add value to the industry. And the industry respects that, the industry rewards you for that, you know. Might be a lot of hard work, but it's not somewhere where you come and try and make a quick win and go.
Now, one of that, sorry,
one other thing that's touched my mind, for a very long time, and Alero, you'd probably be able to, reference this or validate it, is the fact that what you call conscious music helps in nation building, in adding value to the values of people and all of that. How would you say we fare in that space in our part of the world?
I'm always a bit cautious of saying this statement, but I think it's the truth. The problem of Nigeria is Nigerians. And musicians are the point where they make music for Nigerians, right? There's a lot of conscious music out there, fantastic conscious music, but the numbers behind it are not encouraging. And at the end of the day, this is a business. It is music business, it's show business. So as much as you want to do more conscious music and you want to impact that, you can only do as much as, makes financial sense. And then you go back to giving them what they want. But there is amazing conscious music out there.
You actually went to a music college.
Yes, I did.
At what point did you do that? Was it after your finance degree?
Yes, it was 2015. I attended, I got a diploma in music production in London. It was an experience that a lot of people questioned when I did it back then, but definitely reaping the rewards for it now because I understand the theory behind music. I understand music composition. I understand mixing and mastering, all the technical elements. So when I'm actually performing or making music, it's on a different level.
So you're actually producing your own music?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
I'm playing my instruments, I'm producing my own music.
Play your own. What instruments do you play?
The guitar, the drums, the saxophone, and the trumpets. I just started learning, so I can't really say I play that. But
and you play the microphone too.
And that is a skill.
Are your folks not thinking that they wasted money sending you to go do a degree, 2 degrees in finance?
Not really, because I mean, as I said, I still have. I'm still doing the real estate development, financial advisory. Those businesses are still running. I'm very planned. Everything I do.
Consultancy.
Yes, very much so. No, I just try to plan everything. So even if I'm making music once a week, over the course of a year, that's 52 songs.
Interesting. So you talked about the skill of the microphone. I'm interested because I play the microphone too, as you can see.
It's a talent, in as much as you might think it's just talking, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. The speed at which you say your words, the silence. Silence can be very powerful. The volume, the tonality, the musicality.
I hope you realize that you're actually talking about some very important, critical things in the communication space.
Yeah. Yes,
I hope you realize that.
Yes.
Okay. So, future forward. What
next?
Yeah.
So, part of the things that I discovered during my journey was the importance of getting people to live their best life, right? Yes, that's why I'm wearing the shirt, yeah. And I honestly believe that's my life's work. So in as much as I'm doing a lot of things, I'm trying to be an example to others that, you don't have to just do finance, you can do music, One of my favorite quotes is that everybody has genius level talents. But, some people are just lying dormant because they're trying to conform to one path. Meanwhile, they could be blessing the world with their gift. So I hope I inspire some people to be like, actually, let me try this, let me try that.
Okay.
Okay, and you're also blessing them with your personal finance for creatives series.
Yes, that's
Do you do that once every year or something?
It's 3 times a year.
Okay.
And what I do is I try to get people, especially in the entertainment and creative space, to understand finances. Get rid of their limiting beliefs, get rid of any psychology that they might be encountering trying to deal with their finances. Because unfortunately, we have a lot of situations with people, reaching out, established actors, musicians having issues with their finances. So this is a program that I created, which has been proved to be very powerful for the creatives to get them out of that financial situation.
All right then, DJ Case, Darren Phillips, all we can do is wish you all the best in your various endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
DJ Case closes our program for today, and it's a wrap. I'm Alero Edu, and I hope to see you next week.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.